Hello. In this video we're going to create a function that we can use whenever we want to collect an integer, and this function will do the validation and make sure that the user really has put in an integer so that we don't have to code that validation in every time. So we start off with our function with the letters def for define, and I'm going to call this isInt. Now we're actually going to send a variable into isInt, which is question. So when we call it, we're going to hand over whatever question we'd like it to ask. So then I put the colon on the end, and you'll see that I'm indented because it's going to be the contents of the definition. Well, in this function, or this small program, I am going to set a isValid, and isValid is going to equal false. Now let's just check that out. Yep, I'm doing that right. isValid equals false, and then I'm going to say while isValid, there we go, while isValid equals false. You'll notice that I'm using the double talking marks, double equals there to test that. While it's doing that, fine. And again, we're further indented. So now we're going to try. And what is it that we're going to try? Because we're going to try to collect an integer. So we're going to say that number equals an int, and it equals an int that we're getting from an input. Now, what is it that we're asking for the input? Well, we're going to have the variable of question. Now, we don't know what that is, but I'll show you how that works in a bit. So there we go. I'm collecting that. Now, if that is not successful, this is where we use except. So we try, and if it is not accept, then we will say, we'll print the message, please enter a whole number. There we go. Yeah, that looks like I've done that right. Now finally, we have this thing called else. Now else might sound like something that happens if it doesn't work, because that's how it is normally with conditional, but in this case, else is what happens when the try does work. So if the try is successful, then the else will run, and we're going to say is valid, and you'll notice I'm letting it do some of the typing for me, is going to equal true. There we go. So that's all of actually it isn't all of what it does, because now that it's true, we actually need to pass some data back to the thing that's calling this function. And we want to pass back this thing called number. Okay, so I'm just going to run and make sure that I haven't made any typos here. Now it's good that nothing happened, that's what I would expect to happen. So now that I've got that definition, and I need it earlier in the program, so it's read that, and then I say that I want my number. Now, instead of just asking for the number and going through all of that nonsense every time, I'm going to say that it equals isInt, and you'll notice that that opens there, isInt. I'm going to pass it the question, what is your number? So that's what's inside the brackets, is that thing that's going to become a question. And actually that should just run. So let's give that a go. What is your number? I'll try putting in nonsense. There you go. Then I'll put in 12, and it just comes to the end. So, just to show you that again, and I'm going to print this time to prove that we really do have a valid number. Your number is, and of course I then put the variable number, which I know the variable my num, because that's what I've collected. I used num was within the function, but my num is what I actually made here. Okay, let's have another go. What is my number? Okay. There we go. So not only have we collected it, but we've validated it, and we can very easily use it every time we want to collect something that's a whole number. We can just set the variable to be, and then we'll use this isInt function to make sure that we've got a valid integer.